So here's kind of something else that's interesting, Howard. I don't know if you've heard of like Richard Evangelista, but he's went from like, like no practices to 45 offices in like 5 years. He's got 45 offices by himself out in San Francisco. So anyways, he had a course. Okay. And I went to his course and I brushed shoulders with a lot of doctors that had 5, 10, 15, 50, 60 offices. And it was kind of funny because it was an interesting consensus that I got from them that they all kind of said they're like, that 4 to 5 location was kind of the sweet spot. Like, we're really doing well, it wasn't as organized, but things were going really well, and you still had a good pulse on what was going on with all the employees. And sometimes I think too, like I really enjoy the position that I'm in right now. And sometimes I think like, why can't other dentists be in the position that I am right now? Why can't they kind of replicate my model and have, 4 or 5 offices? And again, too, dentistry is like a ladder. You're constantly pulling people up to help them, right? And I feel like there's going to be a never-ending surplus of graduating dental students looking to be mentored, looking to be treated fairly. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for an individual to just kind of be just like me, to have, 4 or 5 offices. And I think that there's younger dentists out there that are definitely, they have an entrepreneurial spirit. So maybe if anything, this whole podcast can serve as some inspiration to them.
And what was the main takeaway with Richard? Is you pronounce it evangelist?
Evangelista. It was kind of funny. Evangelista. Yeah. So basically he kind of just was like laughing at me when I told him, I had like, 3 offices at the time. He's like, man, that's a walk in the park. He's like, you got this, man. He was very encouraging. He was just like, yeah, he's like, this is like so easy, man. He's like, you have no idea. It's like, once you start getting to 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 offices, he's like, man, it can really, really get complicated. And I don't know. It was just an interesting thing, but yeah, he was very encouraging. But one thing too, that he kind of pushed was having like a dashboard that can kind of monitor all your practice numbers, which is definitely an interesting thing. And it's been something that's helpful to me. And like, I haven't been like paid by anybody to like say this, but I work with Jarvis. I think it's just a good dashboard. I've worked with Dental Intel as well. And I think for my setup, I think that Jarvis is excellent. I love having, all my schedules at the tip of my fingers, like constantly being able to monitor the numbers, the collections, the production, looking at individual providers to see, how they're doing, and just to kind of monitor all the pre-booked appointments and stuff for each of the offices. Because once you kind of get into a flavor of looking at these offices, it's really critical to have data, instant data, accurate data. So I think that's another thing too that I learned from Richard.